Today is May 9th, 2012. There's no one here from the public at the Revenue Enhancement Committee meeting. I'm here, Monica Hamill, along with, you want to give your name?
Frank Seminaro.
And Mike Wolf.
And I'm here representing the administration, Dr. Otto, Superintendent. Okay, the two items on the agenda are follow up with my meeting with Bob New. I guess it's safe to say now the board has kind of gotten on board with moving forward. It will be a little bit cumbersome in the beginning, I think, until we can get the key things are. And I'm just going to share with you what he said, the 4 steps that he felt we needed to take to get the board reformulated. Whoever's on that board, that's the first step. Because he said he can't do anything unless there's a board there. I mean, they can't function in a vacuum. So that's the first thing that has to happen. He's looking to maybe just get 5 to 7 people that are really committed. I honestly think that some of the people that, and I know this by word of mouth, who had been on the board still want to remain committed to it. They just, I think, wanted to see the foundation go in a different direction. So I don't think it'll be too hard to get 5 to 7 people, but if you know, obviously you know people in the community, tell them that if they're interested, we're going to be very quickly trying to reformulate the board of the Education Foundation.
I honestly don't know who was on the board. I know Joe Peterson.
Here, I can give you a quick...
Before you even say the names.
Yeah, go ahead.
The only concern I would have is, these people had an opportunity to take it and turn it into something, and they didn't. And
I understand that.
I excuse that Joe Peterson wasn't leading the effort, but any of them could have stepped up.
Well, let me say this. You're right. Bob does want to interview those people. He wants to make sure they're, quote, the kind of people that want to get things done. So they're what I like to call, I was at my son's graduation, there was this motivational speaker, and he said, you always want to find PTDs. And then he told us what the people that do. So we need to get some PTDs, and that's kind of what he's looking for. So I won't get into the names here. That's not. I do think, though, there are a couple people there that would be worthy of consideration, at least, since they were familiar with the way it got started. So I'm kind of sensitive to what you're saying there, but I would also like to not throw the baby out with the bath if we can, get 1 or 2 people that are still committed to the community and want to get it moving.
And would you still represent the school district?
Well,
would there still be a board member?
Yep. Yeah. Well, see, there's already, and I've sent over to Brian Subers our foundation. There are articles, there are bylaws that were formulated. We have articles of incorporation. We have the IRS letter. So we have all the legal components that you need to have. That's why we said we didn't really have to reinvent the wheel. If we didn't have this stuff, this is months in the making of applying for this kind of stuff. So Bob New looked right at this. He said, "This is exactly what you need."
Great.
So, and I had already known that. I was going to move forward if I didn't know that. So the other thing that we have to do is he's recommending that somehow, and I talked to Brian Subers about it, that we get a letter out indicating to Joe that that we're going to just be moving forward and changing leadership, because he still really is the sitting president of that board. Brian Subers' only concern is that we don't really control that. So what legal standing does Brian Subers have to even write a letter to them? Now, I know they do have, there is a gentleman that was on the board when it was formulated who functioned as their legal counsel. So the way I'm going to approach that is I'm going to have Brian talk to them, and maybe this can be done very easily and very simply by saying, you know what, because he's holding financial records that we need. Even though the foundation, he's the person whose name was with the IRS getting the financial records. So we have to be very judicious on how we say goodbye to him, because he really still is the person responsible for the, I don't even know what's in the bank account.
Right. Do we have anybody from a financial perspective that's working with us on this? The reason I ask that question is I know just from my own businesses, and 501c3s are probably the same. There are technicalities that could constitute that corporation not being recognized by the IRS anymore as a legal entity.
I have Brian looking at that.
They have to file minutes.
Right,
and
exactly.
They have their minutes, and they have to quarterly statement. They have to do all these things to be recognized. If
Yeah,
they don't,
I
it's a
can-
technicality that Brian could say, you're not even recognized as a...
But if we do
Valid
that,
corporation.
my only concern is if we say you're not recognized as one, is we'd have to reapply to get a new one.
Okay.
So that's my thought on that. I'm just thinking out loud. I'm trying to sidestep that so that I
Can I
think
see
it.
that just for a second?
Which one do you want
That
to
first
see?
sheet that he said that we need it? I just
Yeah,
want to see what
absolutely.
that is.
Yeah.
I want to see.
Just I'm trying to. I only have a couple copies, and I don't
I
want
won't
to
keep it.
I don't want to lose one. But if you want to look at it, that's what it is.
Yeah, right.
Oh,
Oh,
you know what this?
He
You
needs
know
a
this from
magnifying
the.
glass.
No, I can't.
Oh,
do
that's
that.
right. You don't have your glasses. Frank, do you want to see one?
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
So, it would be awesome if one of the members of the REC sat on that. As you said, there's one board spot.
There's me and one board member. It used to be Margaret, and then it became
It's
Andrew,
It-
and then
I think it's Rob.
now
right
it's Robbie. So
Oh, yeah, I think you're right. I think it is Rob. I mean, I don't know if Rob would be interested, or if he is, I have no problem with that. But I think it's such a hand-in-hand type of relationship with what we do in the Revenue Enhancement Committee that I think it would be great if one of the members that were on Revenue Enhancement.
Well,
actually
we can
sat on
discuss at our next board meeting if you want to reassign someone on this committee to.
I can't imagine that this takes forever to do. It took me seconds to do mine when I set up my business on the internet. And there was no cost involved.
Were you a 501c3?
No, but
Well, see,
you
that's
could
different.
always, it depend on what you touched on the, it asked you, are you
I don't
filing
know.
for a 501c3, are you doing this, are you doing that, and you just do it. I mean, I can't imagine that this takes that long.
You know what? I know. Well, if you give me
I
that, I
mean,
can.
I did this in seconds by myself.
But you didn't form a 501c3.
No, but that was one of the options. What are you
But I
filing
don't. Well,
for?
the effective date. This was applied for.
Looked like on the side there.
It was applied for on July 17th, 2007. We didn't get a date stamp till November 14th, 2008.
Right.
So the application was turned in almost 8 months prior to getting approval. No,
More than-
over a year.
yeah.
Took over a year. This date stamp is not ours.
Okay.
That's from the IRS. But the date that the public charity status, the effective date of the exemption actually was formed on July 17th, but we didn't get this piece of paper until 2000. So my guess is that in 2007 is when it really started, but we didn't actually get the piece of paper until 2008.
But it might be computerized now,
I
whereas
don't-
it might not have been computerized.
I don't know.
Because it's really easy to do your own now.
But I think,
No one has. I take it no one has even talked to Joe.
not yet. I mean, I was, because when I want to talk to him, I want to talk to him once and be done with it. I don't want to be going into a series of meetings. I'm going to say, Joe, give us the records. We want you to leave, and that's it. But I just don't want to do it really without some kind of legal backing or at least some advice on how to approach it. Bob New suggested that we do it legally. That we actually say, look, you haven't, like you said, you haven't been meeting, you haven't done. He put that Brzezinski sign field up there. He did that through the foundation and never ran meetings, never did anything. So, I mean, I don't want to comment more on that since we're, in the public domain here. So I know some things have happened and that they do have a balance. I do know the sports boosters had questioned where some of their money went on this campaign that they tried to do the capital campaign to get the stadium built. So all of those questions remain unanswered. To be honest with you, at this point, I think that's all water over the dam. Mm-hmm. We just have to move forward. We've been talking about this now almost since I've been here. I'm worn out with talking about it. I'm
actually excited. That
I'm
this thing is
excited
starting to
too.
move.
I think we're finally there. I'm going to be talking to Brian tomorrow. I was out of the office part of the day today, but he has received the bylaws. I think we're going to probably. My advice is to reach out to the guy who was the sitting attorney, who was kind of acting as their legal counsel, as to all these people know each other. See, that's the thing. This is this unspoken secret here. I mean, if he hasn't heard that we're looking to move forward with this, I can't believe that. He's got tentacles in the community. He's had to hear. I mean, he can. I mean, I don't.
We've discussed it, and the son's been in the audience.
Right. So, I don't know what more to say about it.
Yep.
But Bob knew once we get aboard, he's ready to move. He gave me some papers, which I didn't even bother copying for you, but He actually has a job description here that he has for the board of directors.
That's great.
So he's giving me that. It says here, it says primary functions: ambassador, advocate, asker, job qualifications, passion for school district, willingness to understand the school district's financial needs and the foundation's mission, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I can copy these out for you if you want to see them, and then a letter to send to them if they want to do it. He asks for like their volunteer, their biography, and he talks about. You want to take a look at that, what eventually will be some foundation committees. That's what he'll do. He will work with, and he says, we're not anywhere near getting an executive director yet because they don't have anybody to work for. He said, so the first step here is getting and it makes sense. You've got to have a functioning board, and then they go out and then they hire, and that's where he comes in. He helps them search for, if you were following what I sent you about Great Valley, that foundation was as inactive as ours. They raised $265,000 since January. I mean, I know there's a little bit more money down in that area, but even if we got half of that, there's people out there that are willing to, they're just not going to give it to the Daniel Boone Area School District. They're going to give it to they're going to give it to organizations. So that's where it stands. Like you said, Frank, I'm quietly excited. I'm not jumping up and down yet. Once I see $50,000 coming my way, I'll be more excited.
Yeah.
But I think if we can get the one person that I know is still interested, I think you might want to talk to the music boosters about somebody who might want to be a board member on here.
Well, I already know one person that's interested either being a board member or the executive director.
Okay, well, we need to. You can get me that name, and we'll move forward with that. I will take care of. It's not the board's responsibility. I'll take care of the Joe Peterson piece somehow. Mm-hmm. But now that I have direction and know where I'm going, it would be an easy conversation for me to just do it in my own way.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure I follow a certain process.
Yeah.
And get it to be a very, very smooth but quick transition. So that's about the long and short of it, where the foundation is. I don't think there's really much we're going to be able to do this year. We did find out in terms of this, on the financial piece, that structuring an agreement with them for the board to loan them the money is okay. It's a little difficult accounting procedure-wise, but there's nothing illegal about the district fronting this money and expecting some kind of payment back. Brian can just work to draw up some kind of not loosely worded, but it's not like a loan agreement that you would write, but some agreement that says we expect our money back. Mm-hmm. And we may get to the point that we don't ever expend all of that money that we had kind of earmarked for them. So I don't know if you have any other questions about.
Now, is Bob going to just interview the current board members?
No, he's not going to interview any, not current. No, he's looking for new board members.
Okay.
I'm just the only thing I said is that I ran into somebody at the Optimist dinner last week when I missed curriculum and instruction. The Optimists give the academic awards to the top 10 kids in the class every year, and I like to go to that, so it conflicted with the committee. Long story short, one of the people that was on the board was there and I said, hey, we're trying to get this. He says, well, I'm still interested, and so that was all he said. I mean, it doesn't mean we have to go with him. Like maybe Frank's wisdom is, I mean, your words are wise. Maybe that's the way we need to go, just a whole clean slate. Bob did suggest. No, I don't. I just want to be politically sensitive to people who really were committed, and for no fault of their own, some things happened and it just didn't go well. So, I forget what else I was going to say, but we're ready to move forward. So I don't see anything that once the leadership piece is done, because he's actually said he's looking for a president. He needs somebody to step up and be that person. So. Now, if you have somebody that's interested in being executive director, that's eventually going to be a paid position. Mm-hmm. These positions that we're talking about are the volunteers that serve on, just like you guys do. Mm-hmm. If you can take the analogy, we're looking to create you again, and their executive director would, quote, be like their superintendent. Same model. Mm-hmm. That person will go out and do their work, raise the money, organize events, and the board just kind of says, okay, what's going on? Right. So...
does the executive director fill out this paperwork, or do they have to fill out some type
the
of
board,
other paperwork?
The board hires then the executive director. That's a whole different process.
Okay.
These interviews of these board members, there's no legal obligation to do this. This is just the way
Right.
that Bob recommends getting people, because he says you don't want to waste your time with people that aren't committed to doing this.
Right.
And
If
he
they don't
says-
want to fill out this, they're probably not going to fill
Well,
out other.
But he actually has here, if you read this, I mean, he said this is the roles and responsibilities, fundraising, advocacy. He wants people to sign and date this, make a commitment. So, I mean, we didn't have any of this background before as to what he would actually really do. There are people out there that I think will be, if we can get past this initial hump, a year from now we'll be talking about what do we want to do with our money.
Yeah.
That's my feeling.
I've just seen how folks can come together, and a lot of the stuff I've seen has been related to the music programs because my kids are involved and I help them. But you can see how when they buy into something and they're interested, just how far they can go.
Well, in that OM
they've
thing.
done so many things. It's amazing some of the things that they've done
Absolutely.
over the years. And, if we can get a board, a foundation excited about those things, it's same thing can happen.
That OM thing that we're doing? Mrs. Torsha kind of took the charge of that, sponsored a district-wide jeans day. I think they raised like $750.
Yeah.
Just like that. I mean, that's not a lot of money,
But
but all it was donate $3 to wear jeans one day. Imagine doing something on a big scale. If you multiply that 7 times 5, suddenly you've got a couple $1,000s, and then it starts and it grows and it grows and it grows. So, let's just say, for example, next year in the budget, the band does have to be cut, the elementary band. Well, and you need $100,000 to save it. I'll bet you if you have a foundation in place, somebody will save the band. I mean, that's just my prediction.
Right.
I could be wrong. I mean, I'm on tape here, but I could be wrong. But I'm very optimistic about that. When I saw what happened to Great Valley, I was stunned. I mean, I just did not expect $265,000, and they were basically a comatose foundation on January 1st of this year. That's 25 minutes, 30 minutes down the road. It's not like we're talking in California somewhere. So it can be done.
Sure can.
So we'll just have to keep the can-do attitude, and I'll talk more about this in public on Monday at the board meeting with the entire board.
I did forward you the resume.
Okay, thank you. And at this point, to be quite honest with you, Bob New's not asking us for a dime yet. That fee that we talked about, the $9,000, he doesn't even want to talk about that yet. I said, well, you need to get me a contract so we can work out that. I don't want you to think you have to work for nothing. So he's excited about it. He's not really the guy he's the one that kind of pulls the strings. So I said, how much do you need me to do? What do you? So I'm going to be the one that has to front this process, getting this started, and reaching out. But I'm saying if you know people who want to serve on the board, and we can get that group together real quick, the quicker we get that group, the quicker they hire an executive director, the quicker we start getting money.
Great.
So
Optimistically, what kind of timeline were we talking about?
Well, we talked about within 10 days we'd like to have a meeting and the transition from Joe to the next stage. So I would say by Memorial Day we'd like to be wrapped up with moving forward and hopefully have a pool of potential candidates to be on the board. Okay. I mean, I want to fast track this thing. I mean, it's been 3.5 years of talking about it, so he and I are meeting again next week, I think, to see what progress I've made with Brian Subers. I'll be talking to him tomorrow. There's just a lot of things on the plate right now, but this is a definite priority. So
Yeah, it seems like that July 1st date is a big, huge date. Even if it's very minimal results, it'd be something.
Well, I think the EITC might be a long shot at this point, given that we're down to the last hour. I mean, I don't know that we were going to see a lot from that this year. I think if we're sitting here next year at this time having the same conversation, I'll think this was a failure. Mm-hmm. That's kind of how I'm looking long term. Mm-hmm. So I think the challenge is before us now to get this moving. You have made a commitment as a board and as a district. I mean, I don't know what more commitment you can make by saying you're going to finance $50,000 of this organization. If a $50,000 financing plan can't make this work, it's never going to work. I mean, that was a generous donation on the part of the board. Not a donation, but a generous gesture on the part of the board when you got people sitting out here listening to you making all these cuts that you're making. So it takes, a strong-willed organization to have the vision to do something like this in spite of that. So I think we've made a statement to the public that this is important. So it's my goal to make sure that it works. So I know that sounds like politics, but from an operational standpoint, the next 10 days are crucial. So we'll be pushing this forward as fast as we can. I may just decide to call Joe on the phone and say, look, Joe, this is where we are. You know what? You could do one thing for us. You could send in a letter that says you're now resigning your spot.
Yeah. If you really care about the kids in this community, then back off.
Right.
Let someone else give it a try.
Right.
It's nothing personal. It's just that we really got to do this. I think it might be a good idea to. You said you've got that document there that I briefly looked at, or you read rather, about these are the expectations of someone who's on the board.
It's called. I mean, he put on here Daniel Boone Educational Foundation Board of Directors job description and commitment to serve.
I think that would be great to put on our website and say seeking interested,
good idea.
Yeah.
seeking interested people to join the newly. I don't know.
No,
Newly
he did.
organized
I know what. Now I'm glad you said that. That's remember I said to you I lost the thought earlier. He wants to disband the name, give it a new name.
Okay.
He goes, the old name's not going to fly because people
Well,
are
even better.
Yeah.
He said,
even better.
new name.
I popped that for maybe a week or two. I popped that right in front of everything on the website, and people will start linking into it, and they can submit their names. But it would be nice to share that with them so they know what the expectation is. If you're willing to do these things, then sign up.
That's why I want Joe out of the way when I do that.
Yeah.
So that's, to me, I'm hoping even by the end of this week, before Friday, today's Wednesday, that somehow I have at least 80 to 90% closure on the Joe Peterson thing. Because everybody's been sitting around talking about that like it's this, I don't even know how to describe it. It's just been this stumbling block is the best way I could put it. Like
You really think Joe's going to be give you a hard time?
He's hard to read sometimes, so I don't know. I mean, he's got a pretty. I think ego will be an issue. I mean, he's had a lot invested in this. He's been kind of the face of it. So I don't think it should really be a dramatic issue, though. It's not like we're going to publicly say, "Hey, we kicked him out." We're going to say we wanted a transition during a time of difficult financial issues to looking for community support that will get the community excited about wanting to help us. They're not going to. You saw the efforts we've tried to make with Adopt a Program. No offense, but
we've had him sit in the audience. We invited him here.
But we tried. That's true. He's been here.
It's more of a naysayer type thing. We're just telling us reasons why it won't work instead of brainstorming ideas that could work.
So that's in my hands now. I just wanted to report to you. That's what I'll be doing.
Can we get a copy of that so that we can, if you want to email it to us?
Scan it too.
Yeah, I can get this. I didn't make copies yet because it's kind of an unofficial document. I don't really want it circulating yet until
I just want to be able to read it, and if someone,
absolutely.
So
I'll
if you send it to me, be like this resume, just set it aside until
until it's
you need
ready.
it.
But if you're
Well, I'll
saying
tell you what
in
I'll
10
do.
days,
Why
then
don't you let me do this? I'll put these out there with my board update saying this is the feedback from the Revenue Enhancement Committee. This is the stuff we talked about.
Okay.
Right,
So
yeah.
I'll put these things out there as the stuff because that'll show that, I think Bob New wants to justify, paying him the money that we're paying him. So he immediately came to me on Monday with these documents. I didn't even ask for these. This is what he gave me. I didn't know he was bringing these. So I was very pleased to see that. So that's kind of the status of the new, whatever we're going to call it. Maybe you want to start thinking of a new name. So we'll maybe have a contest. The other issue that I wanted to talk about tonight is I'm deeming it to be in the area of revenue enhancement. But I wanted to focus on what's happening with a line item in our budget that goes out to the students who attend cyber and cyber charter schools. We currently have, it's a rough total, 81 kids who primarily in grades, I would say 7, 8, 9, and higher. I think they used to be mainly a lot of our homeschooled kids, but the number has obviously grown. So let's just say for argument purposes, we're talking about 80 kids. Okay, let's round it down. 80 kids who are getting their education in the state of Pennsylvania legally through the option that they have under the school code to attend a charter school or a cyber charter school. It's been a law actually in Pennsylvania since, I actually wrote part of my doctoral dissertation was about what was happening with charter schools, but it was Act 22 of 1997, which allowed students and charter schools to formulate. None of you were on the board the year we actually had somebody come to us and apply for a charter, and we denied it based on the statutory regulations that they didn't meet, because we would have had to oversee it, because the district has oversight for a charter school. That would have been, that's if it's going to be in the physical Daniel Boone community. These cyber charter schools is a different set of rules. We don't really have any sway over them or have the right to weigh in on them. Between 1997 and now, the law kind of morphed a little bit, because the understanding of the original law was that it was going to be for brick and mortar charters, that somebody was going to have to go rent space somewhere or build a building or do whatever a school district does. And then this tuition that the kids get would follow them to their school. That's how those schools would operate. That would be their operating costs. Well, lo and behold, now that whole thing has kind of gone on its ear with the advent and advances with technology and the drop in price with technology to be able to outfit each student with a computer that they need to do the cyber charter school. So we are now up to 81 students. Well, what does that all mean? Well, what some school districts are starting to do now, it's kind of like, if you can't beat them, join them. Because the charter school movement didn't really go anywhere, because I think people that tried to start charter schools realized just how expensive it is to actually operate a school. It's not cheap and dirty. So the thing that I would like to explore, and this is really just exploratory, I don't have a lot of data and a lot of information. It's really just, I'm almost I'm kind of telling you what I think one of my goals is as superintendent for next year, and that is to look at but I'm starting it now. Next year is kind of too late. Starting to find a way to bring and invite these 81 kids back into our system and do the same thing that the cyber charters are doing for them. But that's just like getting a business started. So I have to look at my operating capital and decide how much of my operating capital I'm going to have to reinvest to do this kind of program, staffing, how I'm going to do it, rules and regulations.
Yeah. Tell me what that means. Does that mean that there's a camera in the classroom and they link in?
No, that's like distance learning.
Cyber
Cyber education is basically kids go home and do modules on the computer. It's like online learning.
Okay. So there's no teacher then?
There's a teacher per se, but they're sitting at home doing the same thing the kid's doing. These cyber charter schools basically don't have a place where kids come unless they're doing a hybrid model. Now, I know in the higher ed setting, because I know with my work as an adjunct professor at different times, Wilkes University now has this hybrid program where a couple weeks you'll show up at class, and then the other 3 or 4 sessions you're at home working online. Some of them are totally online. There are students going to schools like Wilkes who are getting teaching degrees, teaching certifications, whatever. Almost, they're getting their whole master's degree online. Good, bad, or indifferent, that's the way it's going. My personal philosophy is I like people in front of me.
Right.
That's not the way the world's working anymore. So it's time to get past that, and this is kind of an opening up of my mind to this world. And the reason that I say it is I'm going to read you 3 numbers. And these are dollar amounts. This is a dollar amount from 2009, 2010, and it's $678,000. This is the number from 2010, 2011. It's $650,000. And I'm going to read you the current projection for 2011-12. It's $800,000. You know what those dollars are? Those are the dollars that are leaving the district to go to pay for these tuitions for these kids at these schools. That's a lot of money.
For the cyber?
For cyber and charter.
And charter.
And charter.
The 81 is just cyber, though?
It's 81. Yes, no, the 81 is actually just the cyber. There are probably another 25 to 30 kids. I didn't even count them for the purposes of this conversation tonight. We have over 100 kids in charter schools. I can get you the exact figure, and as I flesh this out more, I can do that.
How many in charter again? About 20, you said?
In
20 or 30?
About 20 or 30 just in like brick and mortar charters.
Okay.
Some of the names of them are like the Collegium Charter School, the Renaissance Academy. Those are some of the original charter schools that started years ago.
So your vision here is to reach out to the 81 cyber, or
All charter kids.
and what? Ask them to...
Well, I would first of all say, if we had a reasonable alternative for you, would you be interested? So the first step would be a survey. If I get back a survey that says, you know, we're not coming to Daniel Boone if you give it to us for free. We don't like the school, we're not coming, whatever the reason might be. Then that kind of just buries this, and I'm not going to waste my time and effort. But if I can, because the thing that they don't get is a Daniel Boone diploma. There's 100 kids that live in this community who don't get a Daniel Boone High School diploma. I would like to think that that diploma is attractive to someone.
Well, what do they get?
They get
From their cyber school.
They get something from the cyber school. And the military is not accepting kids who graduate from cyber schools. If you want to go into the military, you have to be in a private brick and mortar or charter brick and mortar or public brick and mortar.
So help me out here, because I don't fully understand it. I have a child who I'm taking out of Daniel Boone and I put in a cyber program.
Mm-hmm.
You as the school district, us as the school district, we need to earmark certain dollars for that child to be educated through the cyber program?
Every student here, because that's a very good question. Every student, if you look at this now as a financial conversation, comes to Daniel Boone as a per capita. There's a weighted average daily membership that we get per day per student that they're here in school. Mm-hmm. That translates itself into a tuition. So the state gives us, it factors out too, and I wrote this down, every regular ed student has, quote, the state calculates a tuition that it costs to educate them. That's how we get all of our state funding. That's all that's wrapped up in, so that's what that number means.
Okay.
Without getting into I don't know the algorithms for the formula and everything that they use. But a Daniel Boone student is worth $8,400 rounded up. A regular ed kid. Mm-hmm. It's almost double for a special ed kid, because remember, they have 2 teachers. So they reimburse us or give us almost $16,000 of funding. So, if what's your son's name?
I'll pick one, Frank.
Frank. So Frank Jr., you come to us and say, okay, Mrs. Hefter, Frank Jr. is now enrolling in the Agora Cyber School. There goes that $8,000. Gone. Cyber school gets it. We lose it.
Check to them.
Well, it's a process of making payment to them. But yes, the state sends us the money, and we got to give it to them. It has to follow. The money in Pennsylvania follows the child.
And we have to bus them as well. Is that true?
No, not for the cyber charter.
Not the cyber.
Not even the charters. So there's no transportation.
There's no transportation. Okay.
Unless it's in our district. Some of these charter schools, I think Renaissance is down in Coatesville. I'm not sure where some of all of these are. They got to go do that on their own. There is no charter school in the Daniel Boone School District. We would have had to approve it. And the one that tried to come here, as I said, because they didn't have their finances in order, they weren't staffed properly, et cetera, et cetera.
So the $8,000 we take.
And if the kid has an IEP, $15,000 follows them, $16,000.
Who figures out if they have an IEP?
We do. If they were here already with an IEP.
If they were here already.
Right.
What if they're a special needs child, but has never been a Daniel Boone student?
Then we have an obligation to identify them. The public school district always has the obligation. They can come here and be identified.
But they have to come here willingly.
Well, if they want the IEP,
we never identified that person.
If we knew about them and we didn't identify them, but if they came to us and asked us to identify them and then we did, and then they walked away, then we don't have to implement their program. We're done.
Okay.
So if you're Frank Jr., say, has a learning disability, and you go off to charter school is responsible for whatever special needs are attached to his education.
But they're only going to get $8,000 from us.
No, they're going to get the whole 15.
They'd still get it.
Yep.
So they identify it as a.
Well, they have to. I have a feeling they have to meet. They do have to meet some of the needs. How they do that in a cyber environment, I don't know. That's one of the questions that they ask. But the bottom line is if you calculate. So let's just say out of these 81. So and if you look at that, that's about right. If you look at 100 kids. And we're saying $800,000. It's about $8,000.
Yeah,
so it comes right out.
So what makes you think that the $8,000 we give to this cyber school to educate that student, that if we pulled them back and offered them some cyber experience through us, that we can do it more cost effectively?
well, this is my feeling. We already have the brick and mortar building. We're already staffed to do, technically if all these extra 100 kids were with us, our costs shouldn't go up. We're really losing money.
Right. But they don't want to be here. And
some of them don't.
You said to offer them an alternative. So the alternative isn't come rejoin the school because they already made a decision they don't want to.
We want to meet their need because they feel as though the cyber program is the way they want to go.
Right. So you want to implement some kind of cyber.
We would get into the
option.
business of having a cyber option for our kids who don't have, for whatever reason, some of them
don't you think it would be cheaper to give a cyber school $8,000 than it would be for you to try to build that kind of business? That could be very costly.
I can tell you that that's the next step in my investigation, and the reason that I'm investigating it is I think that there are schools that are getting ready to do it, and they think they can make it work financially. So that's where I want to do that because the cost of technology has come way down.
No, it's the administration of it.
No, I understand. And
not the
but if I can say to you, I'm sending out, let's just say of this 800,000, 600,000 of it is dedicated to just cyber kids. So if I can come to you with a proposal out of that it's all money. If I can come to you with a 600, and I want to make sure the program would be solid, and say, look, I can offer these kids a solid program for half that cost or 2/3 of that cost, and net the district $250,000. Wouldn't you want to do it?
Oh, sure.
So that's my point.
Sure.
I want to see what the break point is and say, okay. I mean, I'm not really much of an entrepreneur, but it doesn't look too difficult to figure out. I am an educator, and if I can bring an educational program that matches what they're doing at a cost at least somewhat, I would think because of the lack, there's certain overhead costs that I already have written into my budget that these places don't have. We do have some technology that we might be able to what's the word you use? Repurpose and use it to help these kids, or maybe we take X number of dollars to buy, however we choose to do it.
Here's the part that I think is really interesting, and this is where it gets into a technology discussion as part of this business plan. And that is if you took a look and said, we think it costs $8,000 per student to educate them here in this school.
Well, that's what we get.
That's what we get.
That's what the state gives us.
And, well, let's say the real number is $8,000. Right? It's probably more. That's why we always have a deficit. But let's say the number was $8,000. If we can show in a business plan that we can make a cyber opportunity work, and the cost of that student to us would really be $6,000 or $5,000, then it's like this is great because not only do we try to bring back these 81 kids, we try to get more kids in Daniel Boone to do that because it's cheaper.
Well, I don't know that you would save. You can't see what happens is. And I have to check out some of the legal issues. And next Thursday, the reason I'm bringing this up now is next Thursday, the IU is sponsoring a teleconference with a superintendent in Center, Pennsylvania, from the Penns Valley School District, who is already doing some of this and embarking on this. Some want to steal his ideas. So if the ideas seem, now a lot of the school districts in the center of the state are a lot smaller than us. They might have half or 2/3 of our budget. But it's all percentage. So if it makes sense to me, I'm going to move forward with it. I think it's...
why not have the schools work together? Why not have the district say,
hey,
let's offer a district...
We tried a consortium approach with this with the IU, and it didn't seem to fly.
No.
Districts like that autonomy, and to be honest with you, based on what Mifflin's doing or what somebody else is doing, if I can do this for Daniel Boone, I would just prefer to do it for Daniel Boone.
Well, besides the diploma that they would get,
that's the big draw.
Do the cyber kids and the charter school kids can they participate in after school activities, football team, track, whatever it would be? Right now, do they get to participate in that?
I think they can.
I
don't know about the cyber ones, but the charter school kids,
the charter school kids,
them.
the homeschooling and all, for the extracurriculars, yes, not the academic program. They rewrote the law that homeschoolers and cyber and charter school kids can petition the district, but I think you're allowed to charge them a certain percentage of that cost that they would incur. So we actually have a policy on that.
So you actually control with your policy what they could participate in, what you would do to make it more appealing.
What you would do, see, the way, part of this also to me is getting out in front of where I think education may be going with with technology and this hybrid kind of thing where maybe, like what you're suggesting, maybe the eventuality is going to be we only need to keep kids in the school building half a day and the rest of it's like a hybrid. You do the rest at home. And we don't have to keep buildings open all day. You know, there are certain courses that I do think are conducive to some computer work, like a composition class that you take or an English class that you take, you know. I think having the live, I think there's a certain social aspect that you lose.
For sure.
You know what I'm saying? And
yeah, for sure.
But I
think of it from a money perspective, and I agree. I would prefer my kids to be sitting in a class, interacting and all that other stuff. But just for the sake of having a financial discussion here, just imagine, you know, how many students it takes to run a classroom versus how many students on a cyber world that teacher could educate.
Absolutely.
So the cost of that goes way down.
There are some economies, and you would have to, again, you still have, because one of the things that happens in teaching is you have a caseload, and you have to be sensitive to, if you're going to have one teacher have 80 kids and you want 80 kids to turn in a 10-page paper, that's going to create economies of scale against the teacher being efficient. So small class sizes aren't necessarily just for convenience. In certain courses, it's, you know, having 80 kids in a PE class, I don't want to, you know, rain on their parade, but it's pretty easy to go around the room and see how well you're shooting a foul shot, or you can measure skills a lot faster. Whereas in some of your more academically reading, heavy math, where you got to correct tests and give feedback, you don't want to overload, like special ed caseloads and kids that have special needs. You don't want to saddle somebody with 100 special needs kids that, you know, need 6 hours to process something that it takes somebody else an hour to process. So there are a lot of things that I think, well, what I want to try to do is keep an open mind to where I think we can save some money initially, but also keep a meaningful program.
Yeah.
If I were just selling out to say, you know what, I'm going to get you $200,000. The program's crap, but we can save $200,000. I wouldn't recommend it. But obviously, these cyber charters are out there, and they must be getting some benefit from them. I think who's populating a lot of these, quite frankly, is the homeschooling populations have now said, hey, wait a minute, instead of, for the parents that used to be doing this, they're now saying, all right, we can get it. They'll give us a computer and do our lessons for us, and we can. I mean, if you're that type of person, there are a lot of families who don't want their kids associating with the kids in the public school, good, bad, or indifferent, for whatever reason. They think it's drug infested. They think it's unsafe. They don't want to be around some of those kids, whoever those kids are. When I was in Twin Valley in the late 90s, I did a survey like this, kind of as a lead up to my dissertation. And I asked homeschool families why they didn't want to come to school. And there was those reasons that I just mentioned.
Yeah.
Twin Valley's right over the hill. Religious reasons, safety reasons, social reasons. They just, some people like to be a little bit more private in their lives. I can respect that. But I think the draw is that if we can make it meaningful and give them a Daniel Boone diploma, I can't see how that hurts somebody.
Has there been any conversation or discussion or whatever with that calculation where you said, you know, the state does this calculation and they calculate that it's about $8,000 per student for us to educate them. Now, that's
a number they give us.
Right. But in that is an inference that, you know, you have electrical costs and you have brick and mortar costs and you have all these other costs, and now they're asking you to take that same amount of money that they factored all that into and give it to some cyber school who don't.
That's been our big.
That was in one of the board updates that I just seen come through today.
That's been our big argument all along. Nobody that I know of that's worth their salt, because the whole thing is we're going to make it competitive, and we're going to infuse some competitive nature into, you know, schools, so that if you want to keep a kid, you kind of got to go market and keep them. But they didn't fund it. They just said, we're already giving you this money. This community is not getting a bigger pot of money to make this work. This community, so we're still getting that $7 million from the state about that, what we get. That's all you're getting. Some of that $7 million is now going to go toward these 100 kids. Right. If these 100 kids were back in our building, I would not have to open a new building. I would probably not have to hire another teacher for anything, but I would get $800,000 more toward my operating costs.
Right.
You understand that?
again, is there conversations being had with the state to say, listen, that's not the real cost? I mean,
All
it
the
costs
time.
me $8,000, but it doesn't cost $8,000
Go ahead.
in a cyber world.
If you saw the update today from the PSBA, it was at the bottom of that form. I read through it, and it was there is a bill that they're talking about in the state where they're talking about reimbursing for the true cost of what these cyber schools.
See, they're saying, and that's my point. They're saying that, wow, well, we're sending you $8,000 for. Do you really need $8,000?
Yeah.
But once the kid goes, the $8,000 goes with him regardless.
Right.
So there's no accountability in that system right now. So I'm thinking, you know what? If they're assuming that they could do it for $4,000, but they're taking $8,000, they're making $4,000 profit.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I'd like to cut into that margin myself.
You got to keep an eye on that bill, because if that bill passes, it makes what you're suggesting less palatable.
That is true.
You know,
That
you're
is
better
true.
off, better off giving them the $4,000.
Makes
Exactly.
the problem a lot less too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think, and this one, I'm not as optimistic about. But I think it's worth exploring. When you're
Sure.
talking about almost $1 million of revenue,
Yeah, of
you got to
course,
look
yeah.
at it.
Yeah, of
This
course.
is the Revenue Enhancement Committee. This isn't,
Yeah.
this isn't talking about $5,000 takeoff, from, whatever other activity you're doing. This is big money if it can work.
Sure.
But if it can't, then I'll just admit it and say, look, we studied it, didn't work, but I think we need to do, if other schools are looking at it, Daniel Boone needs to be in that conversation with them,
Yeah.
and that's what I want to do.
And that questionnaire is key, because there may be some teasers you can throw in there that they can, they're going to get the diploma, they can participate in this, and we would waive this, so you could, there might be things you could throw in there to kind of sweeten the pot.
Well, to be honest with you, there may be some kids we don't want in our building every day. You know what?
Yeah.
We'd like you to go do this cyber program at home.
It's cheaper.
If you're having trouble with managing your behavior, you can go sit at home. We'll give you, we'll give you the credit.
At least it would give you a good idea. There's some people, like you said, you're going to have that segment. No matter what you ask, no matter what you offer, they don't want to come.
Right.
And that you're going to have that. But there may be some people that you can get to commit to doing that. And maybe with those people, you'll find out if it's worth it or it's not worth it.
And I'm just being optimistic. Even if we got half of these kids, I would like to say that for $400,000, I can build a pretty neat program. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of capital.
Yeah. We got to keep an eye on that bill. I'll have to catch up to that. Is that in the brochure
It's in
or
the
email?
It's one of those PSBA
PS
updates that came in?
PSBA
The
legislative
paper thing
update.
No,
No.
on the email.
On the web.
Oh, okay. I got to check.
It's their legislative update. We've been fighting that battle for years from the PSBA advocacy level.
It's towards the bottom of that whole update.
Now, are you
Okay.
able to
Okay.
actually reach out to the parents of the kids in the cyber school?
I know
rather
who they
than-
are. They have to register with us. We
Okay.
know exactly who they
Because
are.
if they don't go on our website, they might not see the questionnaire. So are you allowed to email them something to tell them to
I'll
take
send
this?
them a letter.
Oh, okay.
I would send them a letter. I would send them a handwritten survey. I would be right out in the open and
Well,
say,
email is just.
well, no. I would get them. I mean, if they're cyber charter, they must know their way around technology.
When you register,
But I don't know
share-
if they'll come
there-
to our website on a time in which we're doing the survey. Like if we put the survey
Well,
out
you know how
there-
surveys are. First of all, you can't force somebody to respond to it, and second of all, if we ever do something like this, we can't force them to take our product. You got to.
Right.
This is a marketing job. You got to sell this
Yeah.
and hope they come.
Yeah.
Right. Well, just wasn't sure if you just throw the survey up without actually.
To be honest with you, I haven't
them.
gotten to that operational level of the conversation yet. I want to take my first crack at this. Will be my strategy. First of all, is to bring it out on the table, to share it and get feedback. The second strategy would be to find out really what the state of the art is. Who's doing what with this? Because I don't think there was even some talk about this because the legislature's starting to get wind of this, that schools might be trying to do this, and they're looking at, in other words, they're always backdooring us, so we're trying to backdoor this regulation to say, well, we can do that too.
Right.
You know what? If you want to do cyber charters and let these cyber charters form, why can't the school districts get in that business too?
Yeah.
Because we don't need to charter. We're already chartered.
Right.
We can meet the academic standards under Chapter 4. We have a lot of flexibility under there. Everybody's always talking about flexibility. So you know what? We're going to let some of our kids take a computer home and only come to school half a day, and we're still going to give them a diploma because they've met the requirements the way we have them written. You rewrite your strategic plan that says there's a cyber component, a hybrid component for certain kids who's, I think it actually would eventually strengthen your program. So, I mean, and I agree with you. I don't think you'd ever get all 100 of these kids to come back to Daniel Boone. They're not coming. Because some of these kids are homeschool kids. And they don't want to come to Daniel Boone. And homeschool's been in the law in Pennsylvania for a long, long time, long before the cyber charter thing ever happened. So,
the only way it won't work is if they pass that legislation.
Or they start to say to schools, no, you're not allowed to do this.
Yeah, well, yeah.
They could do that too.
Right.
Because I know this governor supposedly has a lot of connections to the people that are making a lot of money on this cyber charter. It's a multi-million-dollar business right now. Take 500 school districts with percentages of $800,000 to $1 million leaving those school districts every year, and you can begin to figure out that there's cash and then there are hills. So this isn't just happening in Daniel Boone.
Right.
So, so my strategy is, I didn't get to that point. First, that next Thursday, 17th, there's a luncheon meeting out at the IU. We're going to teleconference with this guy from Central Pennsylvania. He's a superintendent. He's actually a member of PARS, which I belong to as superintendent. And if I like what he has to say, I'm going to make a visit. I'm going to go up and see him. I'm going to take a day trip and go up to State College and sit with him
It's interesting.
and talk about it. And then if there's a business plan to be had, I'll get my heads together with people here, get Jeff Hawes on board with what technology and how. But I need to right now. It's just right. This is a brainstorm. I'll admit it, but I think it can get some legs very quickly if and when I say quickly, start to implement something like this. Perhaps, when we go to pass our next year's budget, that this would be factored into it.
Yeah, and let me know when you want to have
this has to obviously, you can't do this during budget because you're starting to throw figures.
Now's the time to talk.
Now's the time. Now's the time. You got to back it up 6 to 8 months.
Yeah. And let me know if you get to that point where you're discussing technology and you want an extra set of ears.
Well, let me see what I find out next.
I really don't
Thursday.
think we should host that. And I know we're not down the path of that discussion yet, but we really shouldn't host it. They have, when I had websites up that I was servicing my customers, I wouldn't host it because I don't want to have all the backup systems and the fire safety systems.
I got you.
So they have companies,
and that's not my area of expertise, so I would have to reach out to people.
They have companies that do that for you at a very reasonable price, where they have data centers with all the backups and everything. So physically, the machines are not here. And you lease that space.
Well, I mean, with the cloud technology now and ways to do this, I can't believe these cyber charters need $8,000 per kid to run a program.
No.
I just can't believe that.
No,
that's a lot of money.
One way or another, you can make this work. If they don't pass the legislation and they still keep it at $8,000, then you could say, well, I'm getting in that business too, like you said, and you could do it cheaper. Or if they do pass the legislation and say it's going to be your real cost, and instead of $8,000, you're only going to get $4,000, then you're incented now to offer to our kids to go to cyber school.
Exactly.
And we'll save money there. So
right.
Either way, there's a play
right.
to save some money.
Right. So that's where that is. Next Thursday's a meeting. I'll keep you posted on where I'm going with it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I just think it's time to start thinking big.
Yeah.
I
think it's cool.
I think it's a great idea.
Well, I'll keep you posted, but that's all I have. If you have any more questions, I'll
Have
be
any
happy.
other questions? And meeting adjourned
All right. Thank you all.
at
And I'll keep you posted on the, just
7:52.
while you're here, I just sent an email out, one of our
Awesome.